As a millennial, one property synonymous with my generation is a global sensation that was Pokemon. It exploded on the scene in 1996 and has had a slow decline in general popularity up until the massive resurgence with Pokemon Go in 2016.
Pokemon? Oh yeah.
Pardon me, are you playing Pokemon?
Yeah.
I, however, completely missed out on it. So now, as a grown-ass man, I took it upon myself to try and complete the Pokedex, watch the cartoons, and cover the first movie, all in the nick of time for the 30th anniversary. Hi, welcome to the channel where I take a look at the ideas and events that inspired the production of movies. Today I'll be putting my focus on 1998's Pokemon, the first movie. I think it's fair to say that everyone's aware how Pokemon started, right? We're all well attuned to the fact that its creator got the idea from collecting bugs as a child. Well, if you didn't know, Pokemon creator Satoshi Tajiri was born in Machida, Tokyo and had an affinity for collecting insects. He wanted to be an entomologist when he grew up, but this desire dissipated as his hunting grounds slowly began to disappear to urban development. Now as a teenage boy in the early 80s, video games and electronics took up his time. In various interviews, he reveals that Space Invaders was a major source of inspiration to go from video game consumerist to video game creator. In 1983, Tajiri started a video game magazine by the name of Game Freak. This startup attracted the likes of Ken Sugimori, who offered his services as illustrator. 6 successful years later, and the company shifted focus from magazine publishing to video game development. And this is where all the pieces started to fall into place. In 1989, Nintendo released the Game Boy. Tajiri exploded with creative imagination once he saw the link cable and all the possibilities that this new device offered. He imagined critters crossing back and forth in the cables and basically conceptualized the foundational building blocks that became Pokemon. Without wasting any time, by 1990 they already had a concept whipped up and packaged with the working title of Capsule Monsters. Video game legend Shigeru Miyamoto saw the potential and backed the tiny company studio with the might of Nintendo. Between 1989 and the release of the game, Tajiri took Game Freak through various business deals with larger companies in order to keep the lights on during production. Pokemon Red and Green were released on February 27, 1996 with an exclusive version of Blue following soon after. By 1998, the video game had grown into a franchise with a trading card set, a manga, and an animated series amongst other products. This wave spelled bad news for the American moms when it finally hit Western shelves 2 years later. Unlike the Japanese market, Americans could choose between the red or blue since culturally, red and blue are seen as diametrically opposing colors. The yellow version was the third option that came later and incorporated elements from Ash's journey from the animated series, including characters and team makeup. Speaking of which, the Pokemon show has been on air since 1997 and I don't think I've ever watched a single episode growing up. Catching up on the first season though, one thing I really liked was that it was faithful to the Kanto geography. It meant that I could follow along mentally. They could have easily set it in the same world, but no. They decided to actually follow the in-game progress. It was neat. What I didn't expect was the emotional wreck this show could put me in. I'm looking at you, Butterfree. I'm looking at you through teary eyes. Man, that episode almost got me.
Goodbye, Butterfree! I'll always remember you! Thank you for everything!
Design-wise, my favorite Pokemon is Porygon, so I was really looking forward to seeing his episode, but as expected, it was nowhere to be found. It was nuked due to the fact that when it first aired, it gave seizures to nearly 700 kids. Dude, that's so scary to think about. I did find it archived and averted my eyes just in case I was still susceptible to it with my smooth brain and all. And finally, probably my favorite episode so far was the Pai Kahuna. I'm not even kidding when I say that that episode was so good that it gave me chills. I was so invested in Victor achieving his goal. The most shocking surprise was seeing how mediocre the reviews were for the show. I get that their target audience doesn't go out and review episodes, but even then, being stuck mainly between the 6s and 7s without an outlier is weird. Even Dora had one episode that's randomly high. Don't know what else to add to this TV portion, so I'll just move on to the movie. Due to the Porygon controversy interfering with the schedule, the movie aired after the 67th episode instead of the very end of the season, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. I could have watched maybe 5 to 10 key episodes for the continuity, but for the most part, watching every single episode was fairly inconsequential. Yet after putting hundreds of hours into both the TV show and the games, I can definitely say it was worth it. I can't express how much hype I was feeling going in. Especially when it opens up with a Gen 2 Pokemon battle. Like what? They just did that? I can't imagine how it was for you guys having your heads blown that way and then going back to school on Monday and discussing it with your friends. Man, you guys were flying high with content. And then the rest of the movie happened. Not gonna lie, it was a pretty standard flick. It didn't follow a traditional 3-arc structure and instead relied on a problem-solution format similar to the episodes. Pokemon the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, was originally released theatrically in Japan in 1998 before crossing over to the Americas for a November 6, 1999 opening. Upon release, the movie debuted #1 at the box office, with The Bone Collector coming in second and Dogma landing in third. It had a budget of $30 million, which is certainly an amount fit for a movie. I say it like that because I couldn't find a source that specified how much each episode cost to produce in comparison. Since the movie released at the peak of its popularity, it is of no surprise that it earned its budget back in its opening weekend alone with $31 million. Eventually, it pulled $85 million domestically and $77 million internationally for a worldwide total of $163 million. IMDb states that the film runs for 95 minutes, but the copy I watched was just around 75 minutes. Upon further research, I come to learn that there's a fun animated short in front, as well as a prologue with Mew and a character named Amber that for whatever reason got treated as a DVD extra. I tried looking for it, but I couldn't find it. All I could find was a short which, side note, included a sneak peek at Snubbull and Peekaboo. I don't know, but maybe I could find the Mew prologue underneath the truck. The movie carries a G rating and falls under animation, action, adventure, family, fantasy, and sci-fi. When it comes to reviews, there's a clear divide between critics and the audiences. IMDb and Letterboxd are pretty straightforward though. IMDb's at 6.3 out of 10, and the Letterboxd is sitting at 3.6 out of 5. The critics versus the audience is mainly seen on Rotten Tomatoes and the Metacritic. On Rotten Tomatoes, critics' score is at 17%, while audience's score is much higher at 77%. Metacritic follows the same pattern. Critics at 35 and audiences at 7.7 out of 10. I can think of a couple factors that explain why the critics rated it so low. The critics weren't part of the target audience. The movie was basically a continuation of the show, which was nearly 70 episodes deep at that point. And to a smaller effect, the translation from Japanese to English was poor. The movie scored fairly predictably with the audiences. If you plug in IMDb 77% and Metacritic's 7.7 out of 10, it'll fit squarely amongst the ratings of the episodes. Probably the funniest thing is knowing that Roger Ebert had to sit down and watch the movie with absolutely zero context and completely out of his element. In his review, he mentions that it holds no value compared to other animations. He finishes his thoughts with, "I can't recommend the film or work up much enthusiasm for it because there is no level at which it enriches a new viewer by encouraging thinking or observation. It's just a sound and light show, linked to the marketing push for Pokemon in general. But I may have completely bypassed the point and misinterpreted the crucial Pokemon lore. This may disqualify me from ever becoming a Pokemon trainer. I can live with that."
It took a while for me to warm up to the characters themselves, with the exception of Pikachu, who is the most expressive of the Pokemon. I could certainly recommend this movie for you kids. My final assessment, Pokemon may be hokey for adults, but will be okie dokie with the kids.
Well, you know, if a movie is not good for adults, in a way it isn't good for kids either, because this movie, it seems to me, is basically just part of the whole marketing thing. But what is this really about? I mean,
well, it's about love. It's about a lot of things.
It's about acquiring Pokemon.
I think that it's okay that it's maybe a movie just for kids, even though it's probably better.
Yeah, that is technically okay, but you know, there are movies that, like, for example, My Neighbor Totoro and Kiki's Delivery Service, two Japanese animated films
movies,
that are so
no doubt
infinitely
about it.
better and wiser and gentler and nicer. And in this one, they fight for an hour, and then they have a message at the end about how fighting is bad. But then they're going to have a sequel where they fight some more.
I can't believe I'm actually sort of sticking up for Pokemon, but I didn't think it was that bad. I thought the fighting was sort of controlled. I thought there was a human quality to it. I was really moved at the end when Pikachu teared up, and the final message is about love and togetherness and hanging in there, and even the villain is transformed.
We split on Pokemon, the first movie. Joyce thinks this animated feature is fine for its target audience. I think kids deserve better.
Whether the movie got good reviews or not, or if it made enough money or not, it didn't matter. The Pokemon franchise was already a juggernaut, and the movie was just fan service at that point. The franchise was going to continue. The sequel, Pokemon Gold and Silver, was released by the end of that month, and the episodes corresponding with that region were already beginning to air. Over time, the franchise ended up becoming the most profitable IP ever. In 2019, Pokemon the first movie was remade in CGI shot for shot. I mean, they expanded some scenes and added new camera movements, but it was still the same movie. And let me tell you, brother, I wasn't a fan of it. It was just soulless. One thing has become very clear from the Pokemon company is that they have all this money, but they never put it towards the games. The complaints I've seen is that the games are very stripped down compared to other games that take full advantage of their system's capabilities. And this movie felt just about the same. The characters just felt dead in their eyes, and in some occasions, the audio didn't match the mouth movements. It was jarring.
I'm battling you now.
Not to mention that they removed all the music in lieu of generic orchestral soundtrack. Yes, I know music licenses expire over time, but still, the cheesy Brother My Brother song was missed. Anyways, the reviews for the movie were expectedly lower. Letterboxd has it at 2.5 out of 5, with the original being 3.6. IMDb's at 5.7 out of 10, and the original at 6.3. Metacritic has a critic's score to be determined, with its sole critic rating it at a 50, and the audience at 5.7 out of 10. The originals were 35 and 7.7 out of 10. And now for the shocker, Rotten Tomatoes. The critics gave it a score of 44%, while the audience gave it a 46%. So let me get this straight. The original far superior movie got a 17%, while the inferior remake got a 44%? Dude, I was so shocked when I saw this. I tried explaining it to myself, stating that maybe it was the millennials all grown up and understanding the Pokemon property enough to rate it fairly, as they were the intended audience all along, but it still had flaws and giving it its proper rating that it should have gotten in the beginning. Aside from the run-on sentence I just spouted, I have no other idea why it got better. With the audience score, the non-professional movie critics, still went down from the original's 77%, and I'm okay with that. Anyways, before I close it out, I did play the video games. Long story, but I own a Game Boy and yellow version and played it, and I borrowed my sister's blue copy for the exclusives, but I just kept having bad luck with the games crashing. Currently, I'm on my 4th playthrough, and after a total of maybe about 130 hours, I have 147 out of the 151 Pokemon in my Pokedex. My blue cartridge failed yet again, and I don't want to do another playthrough just for one more Pokemon. I'm also not going to drop $70 for the red version just to get my 3 remaining Pokemons. I already bought silver, and I'm thinking I'll just trade down my remaining Pokemon just to complete the Pokedex. Aside from that, I'll continue to passively watch the cartoons and playing the games here and there, and I'll look forward to completing the upcoming Pokedexes. This journey has just begun.